Hey Maps and Mittens, welcome to a vlog style video that I'm doing today. You may have noticed we actually don't have an episode up this week, and that happens. We were going to do Game Talk Live. Some scheduling conflicts got in the way. We are three different individuals with three different lives. Sometimes that's going to happen. We couldn't find a good workaround, so we decided to nix the Game Talk Live and still bring you our thoughts on the games we played. So I'm doing mine in a style of a vlog, so I could talk to you about the game that I chose to play for the Game Talk that we were going to do. So it is Comic Book Month, which is a month that I chose to do. I thought it would be a fun month to do because it's kind of outside of the realm of stuff we talk about, and there's a lot of comic book based video games. So before I actually get to the game, I want to preface it a little bit by setting up a time in my life where a game like this would have been something that I loved, and that was back about 10 years ago, honestly. 2013 through 2015, the Wii U was my main console of choice. And if you don't know anything about the Wii U, is that it was kind of a big failure for Nintendo. And a lot of the games that weren't Nintendo games that came out on the console were more family-oriented titles. So being an owner of the Wii U, wanting to explore other games, I did find myself trying out some of the other games, like Skylanders, which I actually enjoyed. And there's some other ones like Disney Infinity I didn't get into and stuff. But one of the big ones was the Lego franchise. Obviously, the Lego franchise is going to sell well. Two of the games that I played a lot of on the Wii U were Lego Batman 2 and Lego Batman 3. Played these games a shit ton. I've talked about Lego Batman 3 before because I actually bought this game over Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, because they both came out the same day. And I chose this, and I'm glad I did, because it turns out Rise of Lyric was crap fest. So this is my copy that I paid $60 for or whatever. But yeah, the Lego games, I have a ton more for Wii U, but these two, I like Batman a lot, obviously, because we're doing Batman for this month. These two stuck out as two that I played a lot of on the Wii U. So I got a Switch, back in 2018, and I was picking up titles, and I saw this one, and I had to pick it up, but after picking it up, I don't know, I don't play as many Lego games now. I dabble here or there. After picking it up, I only played about 10 hours of it. Lego DC Super Villains. So I chose to play this for this Game Talk Live we were going to do because it is comic book based, and it's a game that I remember enjoying my time with, what I had played, but I had gotten distracted just like right away, and I stopped playing it. And looking back at my file, I got like 20% through the game. So I decided to restart because I didn't remember what happened, and I'm about caught up with where I was. So I'm really giving you my impressions today because these Lego games take forever to beat and complete. Lego DC Super Villains is a game that lets you play as a team of super villains, which is very unique, I think, for video games. Most comic books based video games, you play as the hero characters, Batman, Spider-Man, whoever it is. Those characters are usually the ones in the title of the game and the ones that you play as the most. Obviously, because they are the heroes of the story. Lego DC Super Villains is fun because it actually strips away the main DC superheroes and focuses on the super villains. So basically, a team called the Justice Syndicate has come from a different version of Earth and taken out the Justice League. Turns out the Justice Syndicate is actually a team called the Crime Syndicate, and they're evil versions of the Justice League characters. So instead of Batman, you have like Owlman. Instead of Superman, you have like, I think his name's Ultraman, or not Ultraman, that's the fucking Japanese character. But yeah, so they're basically counterparts of the Justice League. They trap them or something. I haven't gotten that far in the story. I don't know what they did with them yet, but they made the Justice League disappear. So the only people that notice this are the super villains of the DC universe, which the supervillains in the DC universe are some of the best supervillains in comic book history. I go back and forth on whether I like Marvel and DC more when it comes to superhero comic books. But I can't deny that DC has the better rogues gallery when it comes to villains. So, of course, in this game, you have the Joker, Lex Luthor, Harley Quinn, a bunch of the Batman villains, because the Batman villains are the best. You know, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, Riddler. There's a ton of classic Batman villains, which makes sense because the franchise started as Lego Batman. So these two games, Lego Batman 1 and 2, they quickly went away from just being about Batman and were really Lego DC games, but they used Batman as the front end. This was the first one that really just focused on being a DC game without having to, use Batman. Granted, again, there is Joker on the cover, but there's some other characters. There's Gorilla Grodd, there's Reverse Flash. He's in the game. Deathstroke, again, Lex Luthor. There's a bunch of characters on here that you aren't Batman. And I feel like they do a pretty good job of having a good selection of villains to play as. There are some really deep cuts and some really dumb ones. Do you want to play as Captain Cold? Do you want to play as I think his name is Mirror Man or something? I forget. There's a lot of them in the game, which is very cool for comic book fans. And there's even some other fun ones. If you have all of the DLC, which I do, you can actually play as characters from some of the movies that had come out around this time, and some other characters like Constantine. So very cool, very cool. In terms of being a game, it's basically the same thing as every other Lego game, which isn't a knock at Lego games. I enjoy the Lego franchise from Traveler's Tales. But the problem I have with the Lego games is that basically if you played one, you've sort of played them all. I believe recently they started to change them up a little more. I have that Star Wars Skywalker Saga one, and that one seems to be a bit different. It takes a different approach with this gameplay. But in this era, if you played one Lego game, you sort of played them all. They were basic beat 'em up puzzle games where you're going level to level. You're gonna punch a bunch of things to like break them apart and then make something new out of it. You know how you do in those games. And they're fun. They're fun co-op games too. They're very fun. They're just kind of repetitive. I have that problem with the Lego games sometimes where I have to take long breaks, between games or between sessions, because they do get pretty repetitive with what you're doing in the games. Also, a problem with the Lego games is that if you're not a fan of the franchise already, like DC, you're not going to enjoy the game, basically. This isn't your gateway to the DC universe, honestly. I could see maybe a kid playing, one of the Batman ones and getting into it. But this one kind of expects you to know who a lot of these characters are and their personalities. It tries to be funny, but for a lot of the jokes to land, you need to know who the characters are. So if you don't know who Lois Lane is, the funny parts with Lois Lane where she's not noticing the supervillain standing right behind her, is funny. All the little stuff like that. So I have that issue. Like I have I think it's Lego The Hobbit on Wii U, and I've never fucking played or never watched Lord of the Rings, so I don't know shit about The Hobbit. And that game means nothing to me when I play it. So I imagine this is the same thing for people that don't actually know anything about comic books or DC characters. If you haven't watched a DC movie or saw a cartoon or read a comic book, I bet this means nothing to you as well. In terms of being a fun Lego game, I think this is really good. The Lego games are a great source of entertainment for families, kids, adults if you're looking for something that, a little more lighthearted and fun to get into. The open world's interesting because it merges Gotham and Metropolis. You can go between the two. And I had some I had a fluke early on. There's a mission where you need to break into a prison early on in the game, and it wants you to do it in one specific way. And what I found to be kind of funny was the fact that I have all the DLC for the game, So I have a bunch of the characters from the DC shows. So I actually have Supergirl. And guess what Supergirl can do in the open world? She can fly. So instead of doing this thing, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to switch over to Supergirl, and I'm going to fly over the prison gates or whatever. So I did. I got over the fences, and the game still wanted me to go back out and activate the little thing that it wanted me to do. So, there's an open world, but don't think you can complete objectives however you want. The game is pretty specific with what it needs to, to finish some objectives. The main levels themselves, once you get out of the open world into the main levels, they're pretty straightforward. You're usually set with a cast of four set characters that are equipped for that stage. Yeah, I like LEGO DC Supervillains. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's not going to be a game that challenges you, but it's a game that, if you're a comic book fan like me, you can get a laugh out of it with some of the little quips and characters. It's a fun time. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It's in my Switch right now. It's not even in the box. Or maybe I ate it. You never know if I ate the cartridge.